Let's introduce our guests joining us this hour. We have Christina Warren here. She's a senior tech correspondent at Mashable. Also joining us is Ari Zoldan. He's CEO of Quantum Networks and advisor to equities.com. Guys, I know you're sitting through some breaking news this hour. Thank you so much, Christina. So we have on the one hand, Evan Spiegel talking about maybe a tech bubble and how there's too much money. And on the other hand, the chip space, which looks to be going through a period of real consolidation. Does this all converge on mobile phones? I mean, what is the common thread?
Yeah, no, you're right. It does all converge on mobile phones, and I think that it actually points to the fact that there is so much money happening in the tech space, but when you really get down to it, a lot of that money, we don't know what to do with it. And at a certain point, things have to converge. They have to consolidate again, and that's what we're seeing with mobile chipsets.
You do think we have a bit of a bubble forming here, though?
Absolutely. I absolutely think we're in the middle of a bubble. I mean, you just look at the amount of these valuations for companies that have no business plans, that aren't even planning to be profitable for years. You know, it used to be a unicorn for a reason. Now, every other day, you know, another company is getting a billion-dollar valuation or multi-billion-dollar valuation. When Evan Spiegel is saying that there's too much money out there, I mean, that really says something.
So, Ari, what do you think, if you agree, who are the obvious offenders? Because when I think about an Uber, I understand it commands a high valuation. It's, you know, needs to be profitable, but it's a real business.
Yeah. Hi, first of all, Christina, I'm a huge fan of your writing and Mashable as well. So, you know, and you're immersed in the technology space and in the mobile space. And I do have to say that there are these category disruptors, right? And people use that term a lot. But in reality, you have Airbnb, which is a technology play that's completely disrupting the entire, you know, hotel motel space. We have Uber that's disrupting the automotive space. So like you just said, it's these are businesses that pre-existed the internet day, but yet you have these companies that are disrupting it and making some very serious, I think, phenomenal changes. So to answer your question, I'm completely bullish, and I definitely don't think that we're in a bubble right now. I do think that there are some tech stocks that are overvalued. There's no question about that, but overall, I mean, I think we're in a good, safe space.
Okay. Give us an example of where you see bubblicious activity.
I mean, even when we talk about messaging or cloud computing, you know, this has been a topic that's been hot for how many years? You know, how many decades have we been talking about cloud computing? And you still have these valuations that are through the stratosphere. You're looking at Dropbox, but then you look at how Box is doing since it's gone IPO. Hasn't really met expectations. Even before its IPO, it didn't really meet what investors were wanting to get out of it. Meanwhile, you know, you've got all these big companies with lots of money that have been at this for a long time who are coming at this space too. You know, the Oracles, the Microsofts, the SAPs. I agree that Uber and Airbnb are true disruptors and have real businesses, but just because Uber is maybe valued fairly doesn't mean necessarily that, you know, the next, you know, the company that makes the Kim Kardashian game is at the right valuation.
But,
Blue
yeah,
Mobile,
but
exactly.
Christina, you would admit, though, that things are different than in the late 90s when people were just throwing money at anything. I think that we've become a lot, I mean, I hope certainly, you know, your audience, I hope Wall Street has become a lot smarter now to actually, you know, look at business beyond the business plan and see, hey, you know, is there a business there? Is there something that's credible? Is there something sustainable? And I think for the most part, I think the industry has gotten smarter, or at least I certainly hope so.
Well, I think the industry has gotten smarter, but I think it's also important to say that there's a difference between now and 15 years ago, in that 15 years ago, these companies were basically popping and going public as soon as they could. It was a race to IPO, whereas now they're waiting as long as they can before the IPO. So most of the bubble, I would argue, is probably in private investments rather than public capital, which is what was happening 15 years ago.
I think Mark Cuban agrees with you, in fact, on that particular area. Christina Warren, good to see you. Ari Zoldan, thank you for joining us today. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, guys. 15 minutes to go.